Luna recounted a moment that had deeply hurt her. It was just a watch. That's what my husband casually remarked when he handed it over to his sister. She really wanted it, and I didn't think it would be a big deal, he explained with a smirk that didn't reach his cold eyes. It was as if I were invisible to him. A sharp pang of pain erupted in my chest. It felt as if my heart was being squeezed by an immense force. That watch wasn't just any item. It was a precious memento. My father, with shaky hands and tear-filled eyes during his last days, had entrusted it to me. It was originally a gift from my mother to him, a token of her profound love, bought with the savings from countless overtime hours. Yet there my husband stood, diminishing its value without a second thought, crushing my heart underfoot. The atmosphere in our living room turned icy in an instant. The evening sun cast eerie shadows across my husband's indifferent face. Why'd he look so upset? My sister is happy with it, and clearly, she values it more than a useless woman like you would, he jeered, thrusting his smartphone at me to show a photo of his sister wearing the watch, the last link I had to my father. In that moment, the foundations of my home seemed to crack further, yet I knew no one within these walls could possibly grasp my anguish. I bit my lip to stem the flow of tears, my voice trembling as I asked, "Why would you give away something so precious without even asking me?" "Why would I need to ask? It's not like I have to consider your feelings," he retorted with a sigh of irritation. That was the breaking point. After 10 years of tolerating his disregard, I couldn't bear it any longer. Quietly, I stood up, glancing down at the wedding ring that suddenly felt too heavy on my finger. His puzzled look followed me, but he remained oblivious to the internal shift within me. It was as if the very house was witnessing my resolve solidify. My name is Luna, a 27-year-old stay-at-home mom. I live with my husband, Hudson, and our daughter, Hazel, in a seemingly idyllic home with white walls and a blooming garden, praised often by our neighbors for its pristine appearance. Yet, beneath that facade lies a profound emptiness, a void left by my father's passing a few years back. Raised in a unique household, my mom was a dedicated family lawyer who was always buried under a mountain of cases and urgent calls. With her frequently away, it was my dad who was the heart of our home, filling it with warmth and the aroma of delicious meals. His kindness was a balm to my soul, especially against the harshness of my mother's rare criticisms. His gentle spirit had always been my sanctuary, now painfully hollow without his presence. He would draw close and gently whisper, "Don't worry, you're perfect just as you are." His words formed a protective barrier around my heart. Yet a few years ago, I lost my father suddenly, and my world seemed to crumble, losing all its vibrancy. On the day of his funeral, clad in mourning attire, I faced myself in the mirror. That moment struck me with the harsh reality that I would never see my father again. His memory has since become the cornerstone of my strength. My relationship with my mother was always layered and complex. I greatly admired her brilliance in the professional realms of courtrooms and boardrooms. Watching her argue cases with poised confidence always left me in awe. However, at home, her words could often cut deeply. "You need to be more independent, set goals, and work diligently towards them," she would say. Each comment felt like a rejection, widening the gap between us. It wasn't until I got married and became a mother myself that I began to grasp her true intentions. Underneath her stern exterior was a deep desire for me to develop strength and resilience. Despite this understanding, the emotional scars remained, and I vowed to ensure my daughter never felt unloved or unnoticed. After college, I took a stable job at a conventional company, harboring dreams of creating a nurturing, warm family environment. That's where I met Hudson, a colleague whose calm demeanor and kind smile instantly attracted me. After a year of dating, we married and began our life together. When our daughter Hazel was born, I decided to leave my job to devote myself fully to raising her. My father's watch became a poignant symbol of his enduring presence in my life. It was a gift from my mother to my father on one of their anniversaries, symbolizing the strong bond of our family. I wore it only on special occasions like Hazel's first day at school, feeling a rush of memories and emotions each time. On ordinary days, I kept it securely stored, treasuring it as my link to the man who taught me about love. One quiet afternoon, while tidying up and watching over Hazel, I felt compelled to check on the watch. Holding it, feeling its cool metal and seeing its gleam, brought me comfort. Holding it close, I whispered a promise to my father to be as loving and supportive a parent to Hazel as he was to me. Despite the contentment I found in daily life, subtle strains began to appear in my marriage to Hudson. His overly protective behavior towards his younger sister Eleanor, who lived with their parents and flitted between jobs, became increasingly concerning. Hudson, who had been an only child for the first 10 years of his life, seemed to struggle with his parents' shifted focus after Eleanor's birth. Instead of harboring resentment, he became overly attentive and protective of her. This dynamic became a point of contention when we were planning our future home, as Hudson insisted on living near his parents' house, a decision on which he was unwilling to compromise. I didn't have a strong preference about where we should live, so I went along with it when Hudson and his parents suggested a location close to them. They even contributed financially to our new house, which was conveniently located just 9 minutes away from his parents' house. After settling in, Hudson started visiting his family almost every day, stopping by to chat with his sister Eleanor on his way home from work. Initially, it seemed harmless and didn't interfere with our daily lives, but gradually, it started to bother me. One evening, I cautiously brought up my concerns, asking Hudson if he thought he was visiting his parents too often. He simply laughed it off, saying he couldn't resist seeing his little sister Eleanor. His casual dismissal stung, and I felt a pang of realization that Eleanor, not I or our daughter Hazel, was his priority. Before we were married, I noticed his close bond with Eleanor, but dismissed it as typical sibling closeness. However, living together, my unease grew into a profound discomfort. Thoughts of divorce flickered through my mind, and I even collected divorce papers once. But for Hazel's sake and due to financial worries, I hesitated. Meanwhile, Eleanor's subtle hostility added to my distress. During visits, her smile never reached her eyes, especially when Hudson showed affection towards Hazel or engaged in conversation with me. At one family dinner, a disturbing incident occurred that I could never shake off. While Hudson entertained Hazel, I was helping in the kitchen when Eleanor knelt beside Hazel and whispered something hurtful, implying Hazel was only in the family because Eleanor had advised her father to marry. I caught the tail end of the conversation, seeing Hazel's bewildered and saddened face. My heart ached as I rushed to comfort her, avoiding making a scene for her sake. From that day, my wariness towards Eleanor solidified into certain distrust. Her manipulations seemed more frequent, and Hudson's unwavering defense of her actions only escalated my frustration. He would dismiss my concerns, insisting Eleanor meant no harm, leaving me feeling isolated and unheard. Despite this, I focused on keeping life as normal as possible for Hazel, striving to create joyful memories and protect her from any negativity. The situation reached a critical point when we prepared for a family outing hosted by Hudson's workplace. It was a rare opportunity to enjoy a relaxed day together away from the ongoing tension at home. As I helped Hazel get ready, I hoped this would give us a chance to mend some of the fractures in our family dynamics. Her dress shimmered, reflecting her sheer joy, making it impossible not to smile. "Mom, will I look like a princess?" she asked eagerly. "Absolutely, my love. You'll be the most radiant princess there," I assured her, her eyes twinkling with happiness. As the day unfolded, I decided to wear my father's watch, a precious keepsake, to feel his presence during such special moments. However, when I reached for it, it was missing. Panic surged through me as I searched every nook, but it remained lost. My desperation grew as I tore through the room, only to come up empty-handed. I turned to Hudson in a frantic state. "Hudson, have you seen my father's watch?" He barely glanced up from his phone, his casual response striking me hard. "Oh, that?" I gave it to Eleanor. She liked it and said it matched her style. "You weren't using it anyway." His words and nonchalant tone were a blow. "That watch wasn't yours to give away. Do you understand its significance to me?" His reply was dismissive. Relax, it's just a watch. Eleanor will take good care of it. His indifference was the last straw. After enduring years of his casual disregard and favoritism towards Eleanor, tears welled up as I clenched my fists. Hazel, sensing my distress, came over and held my hand tenderly. "Mom, are you okay?" I knelt and hugged her, her presence soothing my turmoil. "Yes, sweetie, everything will be all right," I reassured her, though I knew deep down that things were far from fine. That night, as I lay awake, a decision crystallized in my mind. By morning, I approached Hudson with a firm resolve. "Hudson, I want a divorce." He was stunned, not anticipating my resolve. "Are you serious?" I nodded without hesitation. "I've had enough. I can't live like this anymore. Hazel and I deserve better." He scoffed, trying to undermine my decision. "You can't survive without me. You're just a housewife." But Hazel's voice pierced the tension. "Mom can do anything. She doesn't need you." Her words bolstered my resolve. "She's right. We'll manage." I handed him the divorce papers. For the first time, uncertainty crossed his face. As he signed, he muttered, "Don't come crying back to me when you regret this." "I won't. Trust me," I replied, feeling a weight lift off my shoulders. With Hazel by my side, we left for my mother's house, where we were greeted with open arms. "Of course, you can stay as long as you need. This is your home too." My mother embraced us, her support healing my frayed nerves. Hazel's laughter soon filled the quiet house. For the first time in a long time, I felt safe and belonged. In the days that followed, with my mother's encouragement, I started to rebuild my life, navigating the challenges of re-entering the workforce after years away. Despite my initial trepidation, I secured a position as an office assistant at a law firm, thanks to my mother's former connections at the same firm where she had retired. My first day on the job was fraught with nerves, yet the staff's warm reception eased my anxiety. Over time, I established a balance between my new role and motherhood. My daughter, Hazel, flourished under the watchful care of her grandmother, quickly adapting to our new routine. However, an unexpected encounter, one lunch break, shifted everything. As I entered the firm's lounge, a familiar voice halted me in my tracks. "Oh, look who it is." "Hello, Luna." It was Eleanor, standing there with her typical self-assured grin, impeccably dressed, designer bag in tow. My heart sank as she approached with a handshake. "Guess what? I just joined the team here. Isn't that wonderful?" Her mocking tone clashed sharply with the chilly look in her eyes. "Why are you here, Eleanor?" "Don't worry. I'm just here to work. Nothing personal." Yet, the intensity of her stare suggested otherwise. In the weeks that followed, Eleanor's presence grew increasingly problematic. She charmed my colleagues with ease, quickly becoming a focal point in the office. Meanwhile, she started to undermine me, initially through subtle remarks about my employment being a product of nepotism, which soon escalated into whispers of incompetence and fictitious blunders. One afternoon, overhearing her paint me as a struggling employee to a co-worker was the last straw. "Poor Luna. It must be tough managing work and personal issues," she said, her feigned concern laced with venom. That evening, I confided in my mother. "Mom, I don't know what to do. She's trying to ruin me. You need to document everything, Luna. Don't let her intimidate you." Taking her advice, I meticulously recorded Eleanor's maneuvers and kept audio recordings of our interactions. The breaking point came when a coworker confidentially warned me about Eleanor's insinuations of unethical behavior in my past job. Realizing the extent of her malice, I gathered my evidence and confronted her. During a lunch break, I summoned her to an empty conference room. "Eleanor, we need to talk." "About what, dears?" Her feigned innocence only strengthened my resolve. "I know what you've been doing, and I have proof." I laid my phone on the table and played the recordings. Her confident facade wavered as her own voice filled the room. "You can't prove anything." "I think management might disagree," I countered, seeing a flash of fear in her eyes. "What do you want?" she asked, her tone edged with defeat. "I want you to stop the nonsense. No more lies, no more rumors. And if you can't, I'll take this to HR." Her jaw clenched, fists tightened. "You wouldn't dare. Try me." I held my ground, unyielding in the face of intimidation. After a moment of intense silence, she scoffed and stormed out. Later that evening, I discussed the incident with my mother. Though she seemed to relent, I remained wary, suspecting she was merely waiting for another opportunity. "It's time we escalate this," I decided, and my mother agreed to help me prepare a formal complaint to Human Resources. Over the following days, we gathered substantial proof. Emails, voice recordings, and supportive statements from colleagues, assembling a strong case. When I submitted the complaint, HR acted swiftly. They called Eleanor into a meeting and presented our evidence. Shortly thereafter, she was suspended pending a thorough investigation. Word of this spread quickly around the office, bringing me a deep sense of relief for the first time in weeks. That night, my mother, my daughter Hazel, and I celebrated over a quiet dinner. Hazel's bright smile as she noticed my joy was a poignant reminder of what truly mattered. 5 weeks later, HR concluded their investigation. Eleanor was dismissed for her misconduct, leaving the firm in disgrace despite her attempts to garner sympathy with a contrived story. Her departure marked a clear turning point. The office atmosphere improved significantly, and my colleagues began to express their support more openly. "We're glad you stood your ground, Luna. You didn't deserve any of that," they said, and their words meant the world to me. As the dust settled, I took time to reflect on everything I had endured. The challenges were formidable, but they had fortified me. With my mother and Hazel's unwavering support, I felt more resilient than ever. Determined to forge a positive path forward, I was committed to creating a better future for Hazel and myself. Together, we were unstoppable.